Anthropic CEOs saying that more than half of the entry-level jobs will disappear.
We've never had a technology that's this disruptive.
It's bigger and it's broader and it's moving faster than anything has before.
None of us should be scared of AI. One just has to figure out how to work with it. Then you're riding the tide.
People today, the entire world is buzzing with chatter about AI agents, but very few people are actually teaching you how to build them and how to use them for large enterprises. And most of the information that you have is coming from Reels, where somehow people present magical outputs using simple prompts. But that is actually very, very shallow. So today we have Kedar, who has had an amazing run at Amazon India and now heads marketing for Kotak Mahindra Bank. And he's here to teach us what exactly is a multi-agent system, how to build a multi-agent AI system, and how to take it step by step towards execution without any flaws. So if you've been watching Reels on AI, that's not the right way to go about it. You have to go deep and actually understand how to get the best output at an organizational level. And that requires some deep insights. And on top of this podcast, we are going to build a playlist which will then help you understand how to use AI agents for sales and how to build an AI agent to run your entire organization with minimal people. So consider this to be the first principal lecture on how to build a multi-agent system. What is the difference between automation and AI agents?
A vending machine is a traditional automation, fixed input, fixed output. AI agent, it's like a coach. You're letting your team players perform the way they want, but you still want them play in certain contours.
How should I build an effective AI agent all the way to deployment?
So AI systems being built on three vectors. Let's call it the trifecta. Cost is what is most pertinent. Time is important. And the third is quality. I think the mistake is building.
Can you show me a demo of how an AI agent helps you achieve a certain outcome with minimal instructions?
Solitaire, credit card, benefits.
So that's it. That's your brief, like a 4-word brief.
Frequent traveler? Unlock a complimentary flight after spending 1.5 lakhs. Apply now.
This agent, packed with all the capability, should be able to do the job of a CMO also. Hi Kedar, welcome to the Indian Business Podcast. Kedar, something absolutely crazy is happening in the agentic AI space, and it is both exciting and scary at the same time. You know, the Anthropic CEO is saying that more than half of the entry-level jobs will disappear, and unemployment could hit 10 to 20%. A 5% unemployment rate is considered to be scary for an economy, and he's saying that unemployment rates will touch 10 to 20%. One of my friends actually built a 100 crore company using AI agents, and that is pretty exciting. And every time a news comes out, usually it's a scary news. There's a lot of pessimism in the society today, and there's a lot of anxiety also, including in my own team. But I think every threat can be turned into an opportunity with proper knowledge. And I want this podcast to turn this fear into excitement. So today, I want to understand a few important things. Firstly, I want to understand what exactly are AI agents. This is meant for those people who are right now running a traditional business or people who don't know anything about AI agents, because usually people get confused between automation and AI agents. Secondly, I want you to throw light on the first principles of building an AI agent. This is again for two reasons. If somebody wants to build an AI agent, they should know step by step on how to approach it. Secondly, if they outsource it to a company, I want them to not be fooled by so-called agentic AI companies, because I see a lot of that happening, including with my own self. I want you to use real-world examples, including examples from your own company, to help me understand the gravity of the situation. And hopefully, I and several other entrepreneurs who are watching this episode will then go back home excited, thinking about the possibilities that we can achieve because of agentic AI. That is the agenda for today's episode. Firstly, let's start with basics. Help me understand the difference between automation and agents. Because until last week, before I met you, to me, both of them were the same. So what is the difference between automation and AI agents?
Look at it this very, very simply, right? Like, have you ever tried getting something out of a vending machine?
Yes.
All right. So a vending machine has very set things. 1 for milk, 2 for biscuit, 3 for juice, right? And then you choose one of the 3, press it, After that, you're supposed to scan the QR code, you pay it. Once it is paid, then either a biscuit or a milk or juice, something will come out. Now, in that process, if let's say you've pressed one and you've done the payment, but the payment has gone through and the machine hasn't received it, then the vending machine doesn't know what to do. It'll basically not give you the biscuit that you would probably ordered. This is automation, where there are predefined steps, 1 for milk, 2 for biscuit, 3 for X, and there's only predefined flow. Anything outside of that is not what the system is designed to delivering. That is traditional automation. I want you to think of a smart employee, someone who would have joined your team and is a great performer. All you tell your team member is, hey, a business needs to grow 2x from where it is today. And for it to grow, what would be our plan? How would you go about it? A great employee would go back, do a deep dive on understanding why the numbers are not moving in a certain direction, would go back, put a plan together, execute it for a week, a month, understand if it's not working, rework it, figure out ways on why it is not working, and rejig the plan, junk it if it is not working, improvise it if it's working, and then come to you perhaps once the number is either achieved or do a mid-check with you saying that, okay, this is moving in the direction that we probably want it to be. This smart employee is an AI agent. A vending machine is a traditional automation. A smart employee is an AI agent.
A problem solver.
Someone who would pick a goal that is being given to it and go relentlessly after the goal and not stop till it achieves the goal. That's an agent.
Got it.
If you really want to know how an AI agent really works, right, I would just break it into 5 steps. Something which first perceives, it'll read the brief, the data, the context. Having read that, it'll reason out, decide the best plan for action. It'll then go and act, execute the tasks, multiple in parallel, and then evaluate, check, did we hit the goal? And then from there, this is the beauty, it'll adapt. So that's how an agent kind of relentlessly operate and will always stop only once the goal is achieved.
It will only stop once the goal is achieved. For example, if I have an AI agent to make motion graphics asset for this podcast, traditional automation will give me outputs that I may consider usable. But when it comes to an AI agent, the same process will be followed, but it will automatically understand the context of this podcast, design assets for it, and then analyze those assets to check if those assets are good enough. If they're not good enough, it will then get back into the loop and then do the task all over again. Is that correct?
That's right. Add to it, Ganesh has a certain bar of a motion graphic.
Okay.
It'll go back and check whether it meets the bar that it has. And if it gets an answer that it doesn't meet, of course, it's in the constraints that you would have put into your prompt. So it'll go back and check. And if it doesn't, it'll go back. It'll keep it. So whenever an agent is working in the back end, and if you've put the right checks and the right bar for it to operate, it'll go back, keep checking. You wouldn't even know how many times it was probably checked unless you get into the actual working of it. But yeah, it'll be relentless in what you ask it to do for you, just like a smart employee.
Kedar, this seems absolutely magical, but I want to understand this using a real world example. Now, you worked at Amazon and right now you're working at Kotak. Now, as a large company, have you deployed AI agents? And can you show me a demo of how an AI agent helps you achieve a certain outcome with minimal instructions?
Let's say there's a campaign there's a static creative that you want, right? Like static digital creative that you want, a banner, an image, or whatever it is for all your digital distribution. Let's say solitaire credit card benefits. That's as vague a brief as one can send, right?
That's it.
This is all that.
But who are you sending to? What benefits are you going to highlight? And who's it being distributed to?
That's a great employee working at the back end, the agent that we spoke about.
So that's it. That's your brief, like a 4-word brief. Okay.
All that you do is just type it out as vague as this. There's a dedicated email address, which is the agent's email address, and you just send. Now, in less than 5 minutes, you will probably see a complete static campaign generated for solitaire credit cards. And one can go about it like this is not just it, right? Let me show you another. While it generates the static campaign, let's try and see what it does for a video. Now, videos is, as we know, a very, very long process, right? I'm preaching the choir, but it takes so much, from understanding what you want to shoot to finally doing a production and then, editing it multiple times for it to be picture perfect and then finally putting it out. We used to take easily about a week or more, even if it's a small, let's just 7-8 seconder or a pre-roll XYZ, right? Now, here is the email address. Let's just say video, and I need another credit card that we have, Air Plus, free flight offer, bottom funnel, creative. That's it. So you press the send button. It's a one-line brief again. That's it. Now, what's happening in the background is very interesting. So we've got a creative agent. The creative agent has been defined to deliver creatives to KPIs. So this is the process where you've just given the agent a task saying that create a campaign for me for AirPlus for free flight offer. Create a campaign for me, Solitaire credit card, explaining the benefits of it. That's it. And you have the campaign in less than 5 minutes. We'll perhaps show the outputs for us to also see what comes through. All right. So this is how the email would come. It's an HTMLized email. So HTMLized email, you know how much of a challenge it used to be to kind of get an HTMLized email done. So now the teams get it in less than 5 minutes. Let me just see the creative. Okay. So what it has done is that, look, it's picked up. This is the Solitaire credit card. Explain the benefits. It's picked up turn travel into premium experiences. It's now talking about the benefits on travel that it has. It has picked up enjoy zero forex markup and limitless global access effortlessly.
But how did it specifically pick zero forex markup? Like there could be tons of features in a credit card. Why did it specifically choose to highlight zero forex markup?
So 2-3 things, right? One is that what it also evaluates is what is the driver for adoption and what is the trigger for trial for a particular segment. And basis that, it is identified that for this segment around this time, perhaps travel benefits are the most important ones. Within travel benefit for an affluent, forex charges as you go outside India, and perhaps even the expenses on your unlimited domestic and international lounge access, and you earn accelerated air miles on travel. So if you look at the additional benefits that it has picked up and what it has picked up as a lead benefit, all are stemming from what the segment it is talking to.
But you didn't specify any consumer segment, right?
Solitaire is for affluent, and that is what the agent has been given as a context again. So it has mapped the brief of Solitaire at the back end and said that for my particular product, this is my TG. And then for that TG, it kind of optimizes and brings through the creative that will work for that TG. So, which is why if you look at it, it's a very premium world that it has created.
Yeah.
It's also a lounge, which looks very, very premium.
The characters are having croissant.
Well, probably picked up something topical, I guess. But that's the whole idea. When you look at these, they are they come to you with no effort at all.
But Kedar, tell me something. Help me understand this better, okay? You just gave it a 4-word brief and it gave you this output. Now I'm assuming that the back-end processing happened like this. Firstly, the agent knows the customer very well. It knows the different segments of the customers that exist for Kotak Solitaire. And this input was given by you. Now, amongst these segments, let's say we have HNIs, we have travel enthusiasts. So, 3 features that they might find absolutely relevant are, number 1, HNIs के लिए सबसे relevant क्या होगा? Remittance. और travel enthusiasts के लिए obviously air miles.
Air miles or lounge access.
ठीक है. और तीसरी category क्या होगी?
So budget travelers, when you think of cards and travel, there are budget travelers, there are luxury travelers, there are experience seekers.
Experience seekers. चलो experience seeker डाल लेते हैं यहाँ पे, जिसको शायद adventure पे जाना हो. ठीक है. अभी मुझे एक बात बताओ. Know your customer वाले step में Kotak Solitaire understood that there are three major segments: HNIs, travel enthusiasts, and experience seekers. Now, how did it decide to pick only travel as a lucrative proposition and not remittance or adventure?
I think firstly, when you think of Kotak credit card and the card that we've picked, right, Solitaire. So if you look at Solitaire, the affluent segment in the affluent segment, perhaps the biggest credit card benefit is A, the lounge access for the family, and B, the overall forex charges that they have to incur.
But who gave it that input?
Now, this is a research which the agent runs at the back. There are a lot of secondary researches that happen around card usage and knowing which benefit fit best for which segment. There are also a lot of historical data that we have about consumers that help us understand our consumer better. And thirdly, there are a lot of primary researches that we had conducted which were helping understand behavior of credit card in India.
Guys, just to give you some context, when Kedar typed solitaire credit card benefits, a fully designed static came out on the other side, right? And everyone in the room was impressed by the output. But honestly, the output is not the real story. So every time an AI agent is built for a company like Kotak, it is trained on 3 layers of research. And each layer answers a very, very specific question. So please keep this in mind, because you might try this agent out and it might not give you the same output for this exact reason. These 3 types of research are secondary research, primary research, and historical data. Secondary research is where the agent looks outward at information that already exists in the world. For example, for Kotak's campaign, secondary research would be the agent scanning public sources like RBI reports, industry studies on credit card usage, competitor websites, etc., etc., etc. This research is done to understand the overall market trends and consumer behavior. So it's basically answering the question, what does the outside world already know about the people who are likely to upgrade to a card like Kotak Solitaire? If this is clear, let's understand historical data. Historical data is where the agent looks inward at Kotak's own past behavior and results. Historical data would be things like past solitaire campaigns, the response rates of those campaigns, spend patterns of existing solitaire users, and which segments have upgraded and which segments have dropped off. Eventually, it will understand what kind of customers turned out to be risky or inactive and which customers are more likely to respond. In simple words, it is based on Kotak's own history of what kind of customers have actually taken and used this card before. So, in simple words, if you have to solve for historical data, you need to have historical data recorded with you so that you can provide it to the agent, by which the agent will be able to make better decisions. If this is clear, let's come to primary research. Primary research is fresh, first-hand data collected specifically for this campaign. For Kotak, primary research could be running a survey of 10,000 existing card holders, or a quick interview with a small set of customers, or A/B testing of 2 different solitaire offers and seeing which one people click more. This answers the question, what do our customers tell us right now about what they want? Okay, right now. And that is how the campaign will get more and more optimized over time, because it will have historical data, it will have primary data, and it will have secondary data from both primary research and secondary research. If this is clear, let's move on with the podcast.
This is the video which we just got, which is basically the one-liner brief that we had, Air Plus and an offer. Let's see.
Frequent traveler? Unlock a complimentary flight after spending 1.5 lakhs. Apply now.
So I'm assuming this is a performance marketing story ad.
The brief was bottom of the funnel. So it has optimized for an action, which is why it gets straight into the benefit. It doesn't talk about a backstory or anything. It's literally straight out saying that, okay, hey, are you a frequent traveler? Then a free flight is for you. Just click now and get it. So that's how it has optimized this. It has reasoned out that this is not going to be a story. It has reasoned out that this has to be a 8-seconder. And that's what it kind of optimized it for.
Has it picked the character on the basis of the data that you fed?
It's basis the target group that Air Plus has been designed for.
Again, this is again stemming from the data that you provide.
Right, that's right. So it's a brief given to the agent. So when you're telling your agent that, okay, when you think of Air Plus, now Air Plus has this TG segment. So you go and create for this TG segment. So hence it is picked. It has made him look real. So which is why you see the character is very real. His beard is probably a frequent traveler, which is why it's chilled out in the way it's been shown. So that's how the agent has reasoned out, and that's where the casualness. You see the background. It's picked a hotel lobby, and it's about traveling, and that's where you get a free flight ticket. So yes, a lot of context will have to be given to the agent, and that context is almost like a configuration of your agent. Once you do that, then your agent will start functioning the way you want it to.
Kedar, before we dive into the configuration part so that people can understand how to build this agent, I want to understand how much money do you actually save by building these AI agents? And I'm asking this for two reasons. If there's an executive watching this operating at a large company, they should be able to go and propose this to upper management. And if a small entrepreneur is watching this episode, they should be able to implement it in their company by understanding the cost. So how much money do you save through this AI agent and how much does it cost to build?
I would look at the impact of having agents, AI systems being built on three vectors. Let's call it the trifecta. Let's say cost is what is most pertinent, time is important, and the third is quality. These three really define which system do you really want to go to and where do you want to put your monies on. In terms of time, we've just seen it has taken less than 5 minutes to get a video and an entire static campaign onto your email. It's safe to assume that any task, wherever there was a handoff that was happening between A team to B team, is completely wiped out. So what used to take months for campaigns can essentially take you just few days after doing the right quality check, so on and so forth. So that's the way in which the entire time vector has been collapsed. It's easy to say that it's probably the system, the processing time of the system is equal to the time of getting an output done for a campaign.
But tell me something. As far as image is concerned, I'm pretty much convinced that this image will do as good as an image made by a designer. But when it comes to video, that still looks a tad bit AI. My question is, do those creatives generate the same ROI as natural creatives?
Let's break marketing in three parts, right? Like there is, of course, top of the funnel, which is creators which are for brand love and things that you're creating such that consumers connect with it truly.
For example?
So Hosla campaign that we had is a great example of brand love. It was created purely for consumers to connect with the bank, knowing that this is a bank for someone like me who has dreams, and hence I want to go to a bank which understands my dreams. So the transition from eligibility to possibilities is what consumers moved, and hence they wanted a bank partner who would say, okay, I have a big audacious dream, I want a partner, and a bank can be a great partner. That's where Kotak chimed in and said that yes, हौसला है तो हो जाएगा. If you have a big bold dream, we will back you. So that's an example of top of the funnel where you're not expecting someone to immediately go and say, give me a credit card. You're just wanting them to say, oh, this is a brand that speaks like me. It's a brand that I would love to connect. It's a brand that I want to interact. That's what a brand love would do. Now, in case of brand love communication, you're right. I don't think videos at large on AI, they still look AI. So what happens is that you feel that this is a little fake. And the moment you feel this is fake, then the whole emotion aspect of what a brand love communication should do goes for a toss. So we don't deploy AI videos on brand love just yet. And
just yet, being the most important phrase of all.
Yeah, the way things are evolving, it no one knows. So I hope it does. I hope it becomes as real so that it becomes easier for all of us to kind of use it for that section of marketing. But as you move to the mid funnel and the bottom funnel, right? The mid funnel communication is essentially about driving consideration. You know about the brand, Kotak will help me in achieving my dreams. But how? So middle of the funnel, one should think of, I know about the brand now. Kotak is हौसला है तो हो जाएगा. This is going to help me in achieving my dreams. How? Now the how will stem in terms of helping consumers explain what the products are. These are slightly less emotional, if I may say so, but a lot more informational. In cases of informational communication, AI can do a great job because it has to come and deliver a message saying that credit cards will offer you free flight tickets, or credit cards will give you lounge access and probably discounts on shopping. Now, that's all that it needs to come and say. That set of communication is best done by AI. Now, you go a layer below. You've seen it. Said, "Hosla to ho jayega. This brand is a brand which will help me fulfill my dreams." You looked at a creator and said that, okay, yeah, they have great home loans, they have great personal loans, and they've probably got great business loans which are going to help me achieve my business dreams as well. Now is the question of how do you really make it easy for the consumer to act? That is where the bottom funnel creative comes in. The bottom funnel creative's objective is to just help the consumer convert, having had the intent to saying, I want to bank with this bank and now I want to probably avail a loan. And if I have to avail a loan, this is where it comes and it says that home loans at X% interest rate, click now and get it. Even this set of communication is perhaps best done by AI today, because this is straight out. This is what we saw. We've seen that as a overall Air Plus bottom of the funnel creative is what it's very simple, straight out.
Okay, now Kedar, I am sold on the idea that मैंने तो AI agent बनाना ही चाहिए, and I'm pretty sure कि अभी तक सब लोग ने ये सोच लिया है कि अभी AI agent बनाना है. अब मेरा क्वेश्चन ये है कि how do I build an AI agent? Because from what you've just told me, it's a very complex system. It seems to be a very complex system which has a lot of data input. But I don't know, I don't have a framework to understand what kind of data input should I give. And while other creators also speak about agents, they also speak about giving access to multiple things within the company to the agent so that the agent can make better decisions. Because, after we had our first conversation, I actually tried making an agent through Perplexity. And bro, it was a nightmare. I spent 8 hours making that agent and it was just so complex because on the outside, it seems pretty simple. Just tell Perplexity to achieve a certain outcome and go ahead and do it. And for me, it was as simple as study the transcript of my podcast and tell me where should I show motion graphics and help me storyboard it. It was a very, very simple task, but even then it was very, very difficult. And that's when I realized that making an agent is not so easy, which is again one of the reasons why we're having this conversation. Because had I not tried this, I would have been like, okay, end of the podcast, great, let me just go and build agents. But I know it's very, very complicated. So walk me through the first principles of how should I build an effective AI agent all the way to deployment.
Agents are the ones who optimize things for goals. They are relentless employees who would just focus on goals and achieve it for you. But for them to achieve that goal, I would want you to think of 3 parameters. So an agent can act and an agent should do the reasoning. An agent needs to have memory. These are the 3 aspects that you would want an agent to do. So act, reason, and memory.
Act, reason, and memory.
That's right.
Is that sequence important?
No, it's not a sequence, but think of these as components which are important for making an agent. For example, you want a creative agent. Now, a creative agent needs to have reasoning of a similar creative director in an agency. Or when you're creating an agent which is basically doing the job of direction for you, then you would want the entire reasoning and ability to act like how a director would be on a set. And there you have to really go deep to be able to then tell the agent to act like one. Now, if you mix that with a director / a finance or a producer, or let's say if you mix that with a scientist, now that's where the agent starts losing context, or that's when it becomes the entire memory starts becoming overloaded. And that's where you see this whole terms of hallucination, or let's say it is not able to reason the way you'd want, it will start losing context. And hence, first answer, the first question that you should ask yourself is this going to be doing a specialist role? And if it is, then am I giving it enough reasoning context, or am I giving it enough action and hence the goal for which it is supposed to be designing the way it will operate? Lastly, what kind of memory that I can configure for it? There are broadly 3 kinds of memories that one can think of: semantic memory, the episodic memory, and the working memory. You would have seen while you would have been trying some prompts that you would have entered something, gone back, and then started a new chat, and then you realize that, okay, it's not picking from where you left. and it's like explaining everything that you've done. That's perhaps where you have not created an agent who does not have a episodic memory.
I want to go back and ask you a question. See, if the agent is basically a superhuman, if I give all the access possible to that agent, now whether that's about my balance sheet or my edits, it shouldn't matter, right? It has all the memory. It has the memory to be a creative director. It has the memory to be a CFO. It has the memory to be my chartered accountant. Now, if it has all the memory, if I give it all the tasks, why will it not be able to do it?
At the end of the day, agents also have certain constraints in which you want them to operate. Otherwise, the way they wire these information and the way they are able to, they will find an answer. They will just be desperate in giving you an answer. And there, the wiring of these information may not be as accurate as one would want it when you are expecting an agent to operate like just a specialist.
Why? It's an agent, right? It has the same memory. फॉर एग्जाम्पल लेट्स से देयर आर टू एजेंट्स. पहले एजेंट के पास मार्केटिंग का सारा इन्फॉर्मेशन है, दूसरे एजेंट के पास मार्केटिंग प्लस अकाउंटिंग का सारा इन्फॉर्मेशन है. व्हाई विल एजेंट बी not operate as good as agent A?
When you're optimizing it to a particular goal, now if it is a conflicting goal, the agent will pick one of the two to be able to go and do it. And if it fits into the kind of output that it is expected to deliver, it will pick it up and do it.
But why? It is a super agent, no? उसके पास तो unlimited capability होना
but it
चाहिए.
is just designed to giving you outputs. So for it is all about, has it given an output that you had asked it to give? And that is where, and that is the difference between agents and humans, where agent lacks common sense.
But why? How does it lack common sense?
Look, AI agents are what? Like, if you go deeper, they are basically identifying recognizing a pattern, and basis that pattern, they will try and give you something which matches closest to that pattern that they would have probably known, or the kind of data that you would have fed in for it to come to a point. That is exactly what this AI agent will also do for you. It will try and recognize certain patterns and bring in something that is closest to that pattern. Now, there are conflicting patterns. One pattern which is basically, I don't know, if you're operating like an accountant versus operating like a creative director, they're two different things. For it to then know what is more obvious or simple, it may not gauge that, because it still operates in certain contours that you would have defined for the agent to work.
But this is a human constraint, no? For example, let's say Kedar is the CMO of a company.
Yeah.
No, I don't expect Kedar to know the finances of the company because Kedar is a CMO. But this is a human constraint. But if Kedar were to be turned into an agent, an actual agent with AI capabilities, Kedar has become a super agent. Now this agent, backed with all the capability, should be able to do the job of a CFO also and the CMO also.
It's just that the complexity in which one could put out the entire prompt for it is where the limitation happens. Okay. Because look, an agent will always give you an output, like I said. Okay. Now, how predictable that output is, and the predictability of the output is defined by how constraints are put for an agent. The moment you increase the scope of the agent, then the playing ground for the agent is very, very huge. And hence the predictability of the output is perhaps lesser, as opposed to the moment you constrain an agent to work like just a creative director. So when you are packing multiple agents together, the ability to debug and know how a multi-system agent works often comes from knowing who is taking decision how. And if you are packing two decisions in one place, or two different kind of deep functional expertise in one, it could get muddled up for you when you're building a complex multi-agent system. As you would operate as only one, then still okay. But for bigger enterprise agents, or when you're trying to bring in a lot more competitive advantage. It's going to come when you're going to put a lot more agents together. So it's like a team of 5 working together. And if 5 have 10 different kinds of capabilities, for you to then decode and say, where is the output coming from and what do I need to fix into my system for it to do? I think that's where it gets complex. It's less of a limitation of an agent, more of a predictability of output, and for humans to finally go back and debug and fix which part of the agent needs a fix. I think that's the crux of it. Again, stems from human capability to be able to control what the agents will end up doing. So define what is the specialist role that you would want your agent to do, and that is an important choice to have. Like whenever you think of building it, do you want multiple agents? Do you want one agent? And I think that's a very, very important decision to make.
Okay. So Kedar, let's coming back to act, memory, and reasoning. What should be my first step? I've understood that an agent is supposed to act, access memory, and reason. So now what should be my first step?
So when you say act, you have to basically tell an agent, define an agent, who do you want the agent to operate like? Let's take an example of what we've seen, the creatives that were generated. Like in that entire system, there is one agent who's acting like a creative director. Now, that is the constraints, or that is the contours in which that agent is expected to operate. So you've asked the agent to operate like a creative director, a seasoned creative director who understands consumers, who has probably done a lot of campaigns in the BFSI sector and has been able to drive output or bring in the most relative content. Now, that's the kind of a expectation, or what you want an agent to act comes in. So defining what do you want the agent to act like is important. It's also important to define what are the KPIs for it. So when you say a KPI, you want that agent to give you creative which will achieve high CTR.
Is this the structure of a prompt?
At the end of the day, agents are just prompts, right? It's just a compilation of a well-defined prompt, which then has probably as necessary will have API connections to be done, and it may have memory which is given from outside the world. But the rest is all within the prompt that you expect it to work. It's just the way how sharply you're able to define the action it should take and the kind of reasoning that you want it to do. As long as that is clear, you'll perhaps get a lot more probable output that will work for the goal that you've put in.
People, after the pod, I tried to go deep into what Kedar said, and I found this research paper called the Lost in the Middle. In simple words, when people build agentic systems, the first instinct is to create one super agent and dump a huge list of instructions on it. But that's exactly where things start to break. There is an issue called the lost in the middle problem. So when you overload an AI with too much context, it tends to miss important details that sit in the middle of that input. Let's say a model gets a long context with 4 documents, one about sports, one about finance, one about travel that actually contains the answer to a question, and the last one about health. And the question asked to the model is, where did this person go on a vacation? And only the travel document has that info. Researchers then move this answer document to the start, to the middle, and to the end, and they measure the accuracy. Now, when it's at the beginning or at the end, the model does very well. But the researchers found that when this document is in the middle, the performance drops. That's the lost in the middle effect in action. This is why multi-agent systems are not just a fancy architecture choice, they are a necessity. So instead of one generalist agent trying to do everything, we need to break the problem into smaller, well-defined tasks. Each sub-agent has a specific role with a short, clear prompt which dramatically improves reliability. It's like a team. You wouldn't ask one member to research, write, edit, fact check, and design a report all at once with a giant instruction sheet. You would assign specialists for each part. And AI systems work very well if operated in a similar manner. So Kedar, now that I've understood what an agent is supposed to do, an agent is supposed to act, access memory, and reason. What is step number 1?
Just define what are the goals that you want the agent to really achieve it for you.
Let's say my goal is to get 10,000 credit card customers.
So look now, if that is the goal, the first thing that the agent needs to figure out is for 10,000 such consumers, what is the message that I would want to deliver. So the agent needs to reason out and identify, looking at those 10,000 customers, dipping into the database or the access of data that you've given for the creative agent to know what it needs to look in as information for your consumer. Having identified that, it will then give a clear brief within the agent to say, now convert this into a script and a video that will help drive persuasion in these 10,000 consumers. We did this for our credit card, and when you think of a usual way, we would have had one output, one film which would have just probably shared out to everyone. Now, interestingly, the creative agent would figure out that for these 10,000 consumers, it created one-on-one scripts. It created a one-on-one videos, which are very, very different than what they are for you or for me. So it took those 10,000 consumers, looked at what, segmented it and said that, okay, hey, these 10,000 probably can be in the bunch of 5. Each segments are different. Some of them are the ones who would probably look at budget. Some of them would probably want luxury. The others may want to look at experiential travel, so on and so forth. And then it converted that into a video.
Hello Neha. Adventure is about making memories, not spending a fortune.
With your Kotak Air Plus credit card, earn 5 air miles per 100 rupees on travel, just 2% forex, plus complimentary lounge access worldwide.
Apply now and make every journey unforgettable.
So that is probably the reasoning piece, was to understanding the consumer and the benefits, and hence which lever to pick around and what to do. The act part was where you've got the agent to really make content for you, and it acted by creating videos for you. And then finally, memory piece is where it said, okay, now if this is for Air Plus, then the memory is where it knew that, okay, hey, what is the world for Air Plus? It should look of a certain color. It should probably talk into a certain segment. It should also have the kind of benefits that Air Plus has as a credit card. So that's the memory piece. You have the memory, you have the reasoning on segmenting, understanding, and the act was where it had to just go and create a video for us.
So, Kedar, my question is, if I ask AI to act like a creative guy, now this creative guy could be an art director also. It could be a copy guy also. Would it be too vague?
The difference is this: when you leave it to open-ended, like a creative person, it can go anywhere. It can find a reference of any creative person, any kind of creativity, and it'll give you an output, because it's still designed to giving an output. Versus trying to tell him, act like only X person, which is also very, very restrictive for an agent. So now you have to define and understand, how do I go from act like an actor of a specific kind or a pattern to letting it decide what kind of an actor it needs to be and still be acceptable to what the brand has to offer or what the brand world is. I think that is a very, very different skill. So it's like a coach. You're letting your team players perform the way they want, but you still want them to kind of play in certain contours and wait for it to pan out as the game happens. The second thing is that because you have within an agent also many agents operating, route all of the inter-agent actions through an orchestrator. The third thing is very, very important. Assigning the right memory type. And think of this, right? Like a creative agent needs brand history. The creative agent needs what is your brand world. The creative agent needs to know what is the brand positioning statement. What is my design structure? What is my design archetype? All of that. That is where choosing the right memory becomes extremely important. Likewise, your entire copywriter needs to know what is it that has worked in the past for me as copies, creating the output that I have. So all of this is important. You have to decide on the right kind of memory that you would want your agent to have. And it acted by creating videos for you.
ओह, 1,000 रुपए का ट्रैफिक चालान।
लेट फाइन लगने से पहले पे कर देता हूँ। कार्ड डिटेल्स, सीवीवी।
रुकिए, साइबर क्रिमिनल्स ट्रैफिक चालान मैसेजेस भेजकर फ्रॉड पेमेंट लिंक से कार्ड, सीवीवी या बैंक डिटेल्स का गलत इस्तेमाल करते हैं। चालान का पेमेंट सिर्फ ऑफिशियल वेबसाइट या ऐप पर ही करें।
Okay. Now, because you've taught me about the multi-agent model, I will not deploy one agent for writing. I will deploy multiple sub-agents and then connect them to the CEO, the lead writer. These sub-agents will be allocated the following tasks. Agent number 1 will be topic scouter. I will tell the topic scouter that Think School is a business school on the internet. We make geopolitical, economical, political, and business case studies. Then I will give the topic scouter access to Twitter, access to my YouTube comments data, access to YouTube trends, maybe Economic Times, Hindustan Times, and several other newspapers, and maybe some international news channels like BBC, Ground News, and so on and so forth. Once that is done, then I will ask the topic scouter to find the most relevant subject according to the Twitter trend today or the Google trend today so that I can get maximum viewership. And I will also give it a constraint that it must only pick topics that might possibly have a 1 week media cycle so that I have time for production. Am I thinking right over here?
The way you've divided the scope and looking at specialized agents within the system, you've reduced the scope of error.
Perfect. Then I will place an orchestrator in between. This orchestrator will understand all the titles suggested by the topic scouter and then evaluate whether that title is relevant for Think School or not. Only if it is relevant, it will then pass on this title to a research agent. Is this correct? So orchestrator between two agents. Once this data is received by the research agent, this research agent will then have again access to the news channels, all the research documents like WHO articles or WHO research papers, market research papers, or World Bank research papers, using which it will then collate data sets and stories that can then be written into a YouTube content piece. Then after this process is done, it will then go to the copywriter who will then write the piece of content in the most lucrative way possible with the right hooks, with the right storytelling, with the right analogies. And again, here it will have access to all my scripts and maybe my communication masterclass where I've taught all these frameworks. And after it writes everything properly, it will then go to a compliance agent maybe again to check if everything has been written properly. After this is done, the output is prepared and then the output is given to the lead writer who does all the quality check. And after the quality check is done, it then goes to the editor.
Why do you need to do it?
But then what's the purpose of the lead writer? What's the purpose of the CEO?
Do you need one? Is a question that you need to ask. The moment you're trying to create a system, what we have learned is that it has changed the process. It has changed the flow because it doesn't operate like how you usually think as humans do. So exactly the question of, do I need this now? Because if it is already compliant, if it has been asked to write something which is always going to be compliant, then I don't need a compliant check after that.
Maybe then it will do a viewership check, whether this content piece will generate enough viewership or not. And if it doesn't cross a certain threshold, then maybe the loop can start all over again, where it will then ask the topic scouter to find another title and then carry out the entire process.
Yes. Now, this is exactly the way it behaves for us when we are making creatives. It comes with a score to tell us whether this creative is going to give you the CTRs, the historical CTRs, is going to be better or not. So it's more of a probabilistic output that comes along with the creative output that it has. So it will reduce the errors that one would have otherwise had. So to your point, yes, you could always have a prediction come to you on whether this episode is going to be viewed or not. But it's always going to be built on the past.
Guys, इसको ना थोड़ा सा मैं simplify कर देता हूँ. You see, when you build an agent, you have to keep three important things in mind. Let's say you're building a customer support agent with Perplexity skills. Now, you can't just say, hello, just handle my support emails, Perplexity. You have to feed the agent with as much context as you would provide to an intern. So, for a customer support agent, you have to design it with three very specific layers, which you would anyways explain to a customer support agent, as in a human customer support agent. So, firstly, you need to define very clearly as to what counts as a bug and what counts as a feature request. So, if you're using a CRM or if you're automating customer support, you have to do for the agent exactly what you would do for a human. So, you would spell out what is P1, P2, P3, and P4 query. In other words, you will tell the agent what is truly urgent, what can wait, what is nice to have, and what is absolutely irrelevant. The agent cannot invent this logic by itself. You have to tell it to the agent. Secondly, you need decision rules for confusion and prioritization. So the agent must know if two emails talk about the same issue, how do I avoid double logging it? If one email is a critical outage and another email is a UI suggestion, which one do I escalate first and which one do I send to a human in the loop? These conditions are what prevent the AI from mixing up threads, spamming tickets, or escalating the wrong things. Thirdly, you should wire it into your existing tools using connectors. For example, you can connect Perplexity with systems like Zoho Desk, Gmail, or Odoo CRM so that the agent doesn't just answer questions in theory, it actually reads real tickets, classifies them, updates your support tool, and hands edge cases only to humans. That is how you move from a toy demo to a real workflow. So please try this out on Perplexity. And look at this, if you want to build an AI agent for customer support with Perplexity skills, the recipe is very simple, but it is very strict. Number one, you have to use connectors to give it access to CRM like Zoho Desk, Odoo CRM, Gmail, or whatever support stack you have. Secondly, you need to be extremely specific with instructions, like I mentioned before. And thirdly, you need to start from a solid base instruction set, and then you have to keep on refining and layering more and more rules as you see real world edge cases. And the more precise you are with these instructions, the more reliable the agent becomes. And over time, you can move from an AI that sometimes helps to an AI that quietly runs most of your support in the background. That is how you give the AI all the instructions, all the access, and then keep improving on the basis of its output and use cases.
Now it brings us to a very interesting point. And I was, I think, having a conversation with Mahesh on this. And we realized that one of the biggest thing that's going to be important is subject matter expertise. There was an era where general managers, generalists were really the ones in demand, and subject matter expertise could only grow to a certain level in organizations. There's going to be a huge trend reversal that's going to happen. The subject matter expertise is going to be more important in the next 5 to 10 years because the subject matter experts are the ones who would know whether the AI agent is giving you the right output or not. Now, in this case, a writer should be able to understand why the AI agent is giving me the output the way it is, and should be able to debug, challenge the AI agent and get the right output out of an AI agent.
This is where most organizations think we can just fire all the experts, get the AI agent to do the job, and maybe have an amateur handle the entire operations.
No, I think the subject matter experts meets a great tech guy is where disruption is going to happen. Because, like I said, you will have an agent give you an output. The ability to know and challenge it needs better understanding than an IQ level of 150, 160. For that, you need to be good in your own domains, and they're going to be back. Like SMEs are going to be in huge demand.
So once this is done, can I just deploy the agent?
Can you run a marathon on the very first day you decide to run a marathon?
No. But this should be easier than running a marathon, right?
Well, not really. Because like I said, when you talk to a high IQ person and ask a question, the person may give you an answer. And yeah, maybe 70% of the times it's right. But is it right in the context in which you operate? You don't have an answer. You don't know. So this is like getting the high IQ person to operate in the world that you are in and making sure that the probability is right.
So Kedar, my last question to you is, considering the advancement in agentic AI, Should we be scared or excited? And who's going to lose their job?
See, in 1970s, there were these ATM machines that got launched. And the obvious thing was that a lot of the tellers would lose their job. From 1970 to now, there are more branches, a lot more physical branches that are there, a lot more ATMs, and there are still a lot more tellers that are there inside the bank. The difference is, tellers earlier would only do one job of just taking cash, making a note, and to now they're able to do a lot more. They don't just collect cash, but they're also understanding the consumer's problem as the consumer enters the bank. They're also able to go a lot more deeper in the way they're building the relationship. So net, AI agents will follow the same pattern. Most roles don't disappear. They just transform. So it's going to be a lot more harder problems to be solved than trying to solve simpler things. There are 3 layers of work, as you think, right? There is an execution work, there's a coordination work, and a judgment work. And when you think of these 3 layers, execution work is repetitive task, data entry, report building, scheduling, all of that. You have coordination work, which is basically managing workflows, handoffs between teams, cross-functional dependencies, so on and so forth. And the last work is basically the judgment work, the strategy, the creativity, decisions that require human wisdom and empathy. Now, these are 3 broad contours. I just want you to look at it. AI agents may replace the first 2 layers, which is the execution work and the coordination work. They're very good at execution and coordination. So judgment work, the top layer work, becomes the place where most of us will then end up spending a lot of time. I just want you to look at the org chart changes that are there, right? Look at the left one. That's today's organization. The right one is where you see the tomorrow's organization, right? So if you map it, the senior leadership in today's world does strategy. In tomorrow's organization, the senior leadership would be doing strategy plus system design. Like, how do you really design an AI system is going to be a very, very important job profile that you would start looking at from the senior leadership. The middle management today does a lot of coordination. The way it'll evolve is you'll have to oversee and find the right ways in which the agentic systems are working. So that's how you'll see the mid-management managers, senior managers kind of evolving in ensuring predictability about the output in the system that you build. And lastly, the teams that do execution work today will have to be looking at probably doing what the managers are doing. So they are getting pushed to the mid and the top level. And that's where you see agents doing an execution and coordination. So that's one area where perhaps you'll see agents doing a lot better. But the rest, you're upskilling.
Alright guys, with Kedar laying out the first principles, we've covered the ideation part of multi-agent systems for marketing. And in the next episodes, we will go deeper into tech stacks and see how to build a $1 million sales engine with AI agents. So this episode might be a little heavy, but stay with me because it'll be absolutely game-changing for you in the next few episodes. And in the coming episodes, I will also get Ansh Mehra to give you a live demo of how multi-agent systems work. Beautiful. This is quite exhaustive. Thank you so much, Kedar. This has been wonderful. I'll just quickly summarize all of our learning so that in case if I miss something, you can correct me. Firstly, we learned the difference between automation and agents. You explained that automation is like a vending machine. You press 1, you get milk. You press 2, you get bread. You press 3, you get an ice cream. If you press 2 and there is no milk, the vending machine will simply tell you that there is no milk. So you go back home disappointed. But if the same task were to be done by an AI agent, the agent will be smart enough to reason and tell you that it doesn't have milk, but it can maybe get it delivered to your house. Because the primary objective of that agent will be to double the business by maybe achieving an NPS of 9. And it will do everything in its capacity to achieve an NPS of 9 and double the business. So agents are meant to achieve a certain objective, whereas automations, they're just meant to do a certain task. If the task is done, great. If there's a hindrance in between, the task will not be done. Then he spoke about the 5 things that an agent does. And you mentioned it in 5 steps. What does an agent do? An agent perceives, reasons, acts, execute tasks, evaluates. If you start using an automation and agent today, the automation will be exactly where it is today, even 100 days later. Whereas an agent will become smarter. And as you keep using the agent more and more, the agent will become a better version of itself. Now, if this were to be distributed amongst 10,000 customers, the agent will also be able to evaluate the result from the campaign and then adapt and then maybe come out with a better iteration next time on the basis of the existing results. The one thing to note over here is that your agent is able to do a great job because it has market insights, historical data, and your consumer behavior data, because of which it is able to make great creatives. So, data is the new oil and it's going to remain for the next 50 years because the more data you have, the smarter agents you'll be able to build. Tomorrow, if there's a new bank that comes out, if it doesn't have as much data as Kotak, they won't be able to build extraordinarily smart agents as easily as Kotak.
I would add that data is the currency, but you also need to pour in the subject matter expertise into an agent for it to behave in the way you would want it 90% of the times.
Then you mentioned that in between two agents, you need to have an orchestrator. For example, you gave the analogy of a general physician who acts as the orchestrator before you go to a specialist, like maybe a heart surgeon. So you need to have an orchestration layer in between so that while your information travels from one agent to the other, it is properly orchestrated. Then you have to assign the right memory. So there are three types of memories: working memory, episodic memory, and semantic memory. Then you need to wire governance. For example, when you asked your agent to make an affluent creative for your South Indian audience, it actually used Mahesh Babu's face. Now that was not allowed, but it was able to do it because you had not mentioned the guidelines properly. This is where it is important to attach constraints to your agent so that the agent doesn't do anything that might backfire. In this case, it could be the interest rates of 30% or the usage of Mahesh Babu's face.
So the compliance and quality checks are important.
Compliance and quality checks are important. Here's why you need to wire governance into your agent. And lastly, you need to assign the right API so that the agent has access to the right tools and information to be able to execute the task properly. For example, if it's an accounting agent, it better have access to your CRM, your bank account, and your accounting software.
The tools, yes.
Now, if you don't follow this process, what will happen? Either there'll be a context collapse, or there'll be quality dilution, or it will start hallucinating, or there'll be too many errors, and there'll be a governance blind spot which could backfire. So it is very important that you follow these steps so that your agent doesn't go rogue.
Yes, I think you need to challenge the agent to be able to give you the right output and keep raising the bar. For that, you really need to know your own subject really deeply.
While deciding between building and buying, ask yourself, could this be my moat? If that task or that process is your moat, don't give it out, build it in-house. If you think it's a commoditized process, you better buy it. That's it. Ask 4 questions. Is this how we win? Do we have unique data? How fast do we need it? And can we maintain it? And regardless of whether you buy or build, you should be able to maintain it. So every single person who's watching this episode either needs to become that AI hire or needs to do some AI hiring. Does that summarize our conversation, Kedar?
Yeah, it does. I think if it lands this point.
Thank you so much, Kedar. This was wonderful.